and make yourself comfortable. And we're so glad to have you here. Today, we're going to be talking about social justice, a much needed yet not the most talked about beyond closed doors. So, if you could just introduce yourself, we'll get into the questions right away.
So I think firstly I'll be thanking Komal and all of her team because they are building up something which is really uncomfortable to talk about. Like Tashu also talked about the mental health causes. So me as a researcher, I'm Kirti Sharma. I'm a researcher and a program coordinator at Lokniti, Center for the Study of Developing Society, where we go up with the public opinion and election studies, mostly how people perceive into the political scenarios which are going on in India right now. My journey with the social justice is not more inclined towards what most of the people do in this realm of social justice, but I think it was developed during my bachelor's year, where I was enrolled as an NSS volunteer. And I think those couple of memories where we used to go to the NGOs, visit slums, where we trained the women from marginalized section, which developed a certain kind of sensibility in me to not to do something, but to first think about it. And then coming up with something which is not brilliant, but to do something for them. So these are the basic understanding which were developing during my bachelor's and up till my master's. I was also once again enrolled in NSS. I was also participating in our Republic Day parade, and before that, I was also ingrained with couple of Northeast people and also volunteers from all the Indian state, where
Wow.
we found that people are not what we see in the theories or what we see in the newspapers, but the ground realities, these are really different. And once you go towards those ground realities, you'll be able to realize that. And I think for me, social justice has been, kind of evolutionary process for me. It's not a single minute where I developed my social justice background, but even during my LSR course, where I completed my PG diploma course in conflict transformation and peace building, where I found that these nuances of justice comes from a very deep mental state, where it always comes from the mind. It never starts from the institutional sense, but it begins from the mind itself, like the small minuteness. I think this is.
Thank you for that, Kirti. And like you said, there's a lot of um, rooting to mind and psychology behind this. So, something that we do see often and quite a lot talk about in, when we talk about justice, especially, and when we talk about women, one of the main things that we see is, the psychological impact on survivors and society when perpetrators of sexual violence go unpunished. What are your views on that? What are the psychological impacts of this on the society?
I think this reminds me of the one of the great thinker of economists. I think the Amartya Sen, he talks about the capability approach. I might be interfering the economic part and also victim part, like what you are questioning about, but I think there's an interdisciplinary part or the approach we need to follow upon. So the capability approach is more like you are increasing the value of the individual by giving their own purpose and the values behind it. If someone is doing something, what there has to be some motive behind it.
Mhm.
So I think it generates from the mind. Why the point is why the particular perpetrator is doing the same. The point is this: justice is being made in the black courts with the lawyer sitting on the chair, but at the same time it comes with the deep rooted societal cause. I think that needs to be reformed as well. When it comes to institution, So let's say if I'm an individual coming from a very humble background, let's say rural background, and I have not been taught of any, speak for myself. I've never, I've never thought about it. Secondly, the institutional reforms. When it comes to institution, these are the third hierarchies, we would say. The first, it comes at the mental superficial level. So the point is the awareness,
Mm.
the teaching skills which at the early age, the formative years can be developed. So during, be it girl or a boy, in the formative years, there has to be an awareness which can spread, not to even think of what that particular preparator is doing to do so. So I think these are the mental schemes which needs to be developed during formative years. Secondly, coming to the institutional reforms, of course there has to be institutional reforms, but the point is the loopholes of these institutional reforms are, I think they are not as much as effective, because the part which is missing is the marginalized section. The voice of marginalized section is missing. What do they say about it? We have so many SSGs, we have so many NGOs working on these part, like Nirbhaya case, we all know about it. But at the same time, the point is we are not able to identify, even though we have good points to raise, like whatever the scouts are doing. But I think a small corner of the house, or the small corner, is what we are missing in the house. So we need to check it out to see the deep rooted societal norm or the mindset of the people.
Yeah.
I think that can be changed with that.
Absolutely. So, when you talk about the small room that we need to address and recognize and do something about and with, who do you feel holds the responsibility when laws are existing? There are a lot of laws, right? Even for that matter, when we talk about POSH and POXO and so many laws promising of safety, promising of rehabilitation. But oftentimes, when they do exist but are not enforced, who holds the responsibility of that? The state, the institutions, or society, or the individual who, is being enforced upon?
So I'll just take a data-driven analysis where there's a report in our locality CSGS uh, where we have asked these questions of to a women respondent, like, are you or do you feel safe after getting dark,
Hmm.
even if it's your the workplace,
Yeah.
or coming from workplace to your home, or even from that matter you're walking the aisle. So you won't believe approximately 50 to 60% of women respondents say they do not feel safe. As you said, we have existing laws, but I think responsibilities again lies in the mind of people. It's not it's not I think it's not one dimensional, it is three dimensional. Like we talk about the Stephen Lukes, who talks about the three dimension of power. So power is something which is not driven by between you and me, but there's also a middle gap which is bridging this gap between you and me. So I think the responsibility is more like a triangulation form, where it's also the mindset of people, it's also the responsibilities of institutions. Again, it holds the dignified values which the Constitution gives to ourselves. Even though I have freedom of expression, but am I able to express it in a form which is surrounded by Article 19 bracket 3 clause? So this is what we have to question. See, people are protesting,
Absolutely.
but I think there has to be a balance. What is right and what is wrong cannot be justified in the simple books, but has to be come with a kind of conversations.
Absolutely. Well, when we do talk about all of this, we understand that symbolic support plays a huge role, right? Like announcements, assurances, any kind of written, verbal commitments or promises. But oftentimes, follow-ups are not something that is symbolic. Follow-ups are more, progressive, little by little, small steps. Do you feel the follow-up has a bigger impact in deepening trauma or deepening negative emotions and thoughts? Or do you feel the symbolic support has a deeper impact? Because here I'm showing that I'm supporting you, and here I'm actually responsible for follow-ups, follow-throughs, what next, how to manage the obstacles, how to manage the roadblock. And here I'm showing you symbolic support that, hey, this is what is binding us, that I'm going to support you. Or I'm going to announce that, hey, I'm going to be responsible for so and so. Or how do they sort of
I'll
also? Yeah.
okay. I'll be giving a really daily life example. So I have a red color apple, right, in front of my table, which is right there. And this, again, we have two individual. I'm asking particular individual A to, can you please eat this apple? Since both of them are hungry, I ask A individual if you can eat it. He or she abruptly said that definitely I'm gonna eat it because I'm hungry, I'm starving.
Hmm.
Secondly, the individual B, if I say to him or her, you just have to see it, you don't need to eat it.
Hmm.
Just by seeing it, you can just manage in your mind that you are eating. So
Yeah.
the point I'm trying to make is the follow up is much more important than giving any kind of symbolic representation. See, if you are convincing people that everything's gonna be fine without giving any kind of, examples, without giving any kind of assurances, I don't think so there's a place where people can grow or people can grow up with their own mindset. I think that those conversations where follow-ups are there is what requires the most. When, let's say, if we talk about let's say if I am going to a psychiatrist, and what do is everything's gonna be fine, you don't need to worry about it, everything's gonna be fine, take your time. Of course, time heals everything, but at the same time, let's say if Komal is saying something to me and I'm not giving any kind of responses to Komal, I'm just saying everything's gonna be fine, this is not how the realistic conversation can come up. I
Yeah.
think follow-ups are more important in that matter.
Um, you know, I hear you that follow-ups are more important, but that makes me wonder, why do you feel that strong policies, after doing a lot of data analysis, research, understanding the gaps, like you said, that if we're here and we want to be there, addressing the gap, understanding the gap is important to build a bridge towards the thing that we want, or the response that we want, or the outcome that we want. Why do creating strong policies often fail at the level when it comes to implementing those strong policies? Why the gap between forming strong policies but not being able to implement, or not having a very high implementation rate of it?
I think in that point, the implementation is more like the responsibility or accountability of person who is coming onto the ground and implementing those policy and also taking the follow-up. So let's say I have XYZ scheme for women and I have implemented for the same, right? But after a certain period of time, me as an accountable person is not going to the ground to have a follow-up, right? I think policy responsive has its own meaning, responses. I'm so sorry for this background music.
No worries.
So the policy responses is more like the response. It's not like imposing something which is never gonna come back. So I think people who are creating those policies can be having a good approach. At the same time, when there's a lack of domino theory, which we have already talked about in international relation, domino theory, I think there has to be a synchronization at every level in system. From this level to the upper level, there has to be an accountability. I think if it's accountability is not there, and if one plate breaks down from the middle, the entire plate will be broken down.
Absolutely.
I think accountability at systematic manner is what's required.
Absolutely. Since you mentioned the domino theory, could you explain it a bit? How does domino theory play out when it comes to systems and our institutions, levels, and individuals at the end?
Okay. So basically, I've drawn this analogy just because I can explain you. At the same time, the domino theory talks about if, let's say, if one particular state is falling towards any ideology, the other state will be following upon the same. This is the basic interpretation of domino theory, which was there in the Cold War era.
Yeah.
But I am proposing this analogy is more like if one basket is there, let's say I have one book, the
Yeah.
second book is here, third book is here. If I remove the single book from this part, the one which is much nearer to the ground, all the other books will be falling apart or they will be falling onto the ground. So this is more like the systematic interpretation has been broken down. I think this the real interpretation, I would say.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Kirti, when we talk about social justice and how the institution works, what is that one interesting theory? More than interesting, what is something unexpected that you've come across while your studies of social justice that more people need to know about, but not many actually do?
So are we talking about the real life experiences or the theory part?
Both. We're open to both.
Okay. Okay. So I think in the theory part, I shall come up with gender equity, where we often make this opaque by coming up with gender equality. Equity is more like, everyone comes with a very different position. Let's say if I'm coming from very rural background,
Yeah.
and if you're coming from very urban background, so the support system has to be in a different position so that you can give an equal opportunity, and I as an individual coming from rural background can be given an equal opportunity so that both of the individual can grow in their own dignity. I think this is what requires, even in the private sector, government sector, in every sector in India, I would say.
Absolutely.
And coming to the experiences part, I think I have a lot of experiences, but I'll be choosing the one from the single basket, which needs to be developed. Okay, I think we mostly we talk about the feminism part,
Yeah.
but in the recent years, the pseudo-feminism part has been developed so widely. And I think in my lived experiences, the women who required the feminism part, they are often shown the mirror, the black mirror, which is like a pseudo-feminism. At the same time, the women who are well qualified, they are not doing something from, or perhaps they are doing, but they are taking the whole advantage of whatever they have done for the rural women coming from very rural background. I think in my lived experiences, there has to be equanimity between the feminism and the and the women who requires a real feminism. There has to be a equanimity between both of them.
I hear you. We spoke a little bit about legal justice, we spoke about social justice, but completing the circle, the first thing that you said was it all comes down to the individual's mind. So, beyond legal and beyond social justice, what does psychological justice actually look like for individuals and especially communities?
Okay. This reminds me of one theorist, I think, yeah, Johann Galtung, who talks about who talks about the negative piece and also the positive piece. I think he talks about the negative piece, which is, absence of any kind of violence. And the positive piece is that is coming from the harmony, the positivity, which comes from the mind of people. So in this era, in the world of AI, in the world of, war happenings around the globe, I think the positive piece is more required. And how can we achieve that? I think these community groups, and I've been following a couple of community groups, and I've seen people are going there talking about things which makes them feel very uncomfortable. So first, shifting from negative piece to positive piece. Secondly, people are talking about it. Let's talk about it. If something is making you really uncomfortable, you can be a therapeutic role. Your therapeutic role can be in various ways. Let's say penning down, talking to someone, or just writing it out. Don't say it to anybody. Just try it out journaling.
Yeah.
I think these small changes which are required. And the third most disastrous thing is the mobile phones, I would say. I think the screen time, the social media screen time has been devastatingly increasingly.
Yeah.
And I believe in the coming years, people will be reading more books rather than switching to mobile phones. I do promote soft copies, reading soft copies and saving the paper as well. But to coming up with that level of mindset where you do not shift from a soft copy from Kindle edition to Instagram.
Yeah.
So there are so many distractions. So once you overcome that distraction, you can, of course, come up with the Kindle edition. I think these are the nuances which we developed during our mindfulness era.
I'm glad you said that, This is a question, the last question that I have for the day is something that we ask to all of our experts and all of our guests is what is that one thing you want to say that people listening to this, people around the world, should make themselves comfortable with?
Sorry, could you please repeat again?
This is
I'm
a
so sorry.
question that we ask everybody, all the experts, all the guests that we have on my conversations. What is that one thing you feel people should make themselves comfortable with?
I think for me, it's solely meditation. I think meditation can bring out something very meaningful and somewhere sometimes it's just emptiness. You don't have to give a name to your thought. It can be emptiness. You can just accept it and let it go. And I've been a complete Vipassana meditator for past many years. So I think Vipassana or like any kind of meditative technique which can help your mind to feel safe, to feel open, and to just be positive. I think nihilistic penguins are there, the punch monkey is also there. But the point is how you can be more fruitful in your own life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for that conversation, Kirti. I think we covered quite a range of topics under social justice. But of course, as a subject, it goes beyond so much in from everyday decision making to literally policies being passed, bills being passed. So it really, covers a lot, especially living in a community, living around people, and a country like India, where community and collectivism is something that is highlighted. Social justice was certainly something that we wanted to address, not just the legal parts of it, but also the psychological. So, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation and sharing so much that you know and research about and your lived experiences as well. So, really appreciate that. And thank you so much, Kirti.
Thank you so much, Komal, and your team for this small efforts. I think you'll be going ahead with the great heights, I'm quite sure.